Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I'm Kristi Lowe. I'm your host, and I am so glad that you are joining us today. I am joined today with Lisa Granger. She is here from the East Coast. If you are in West Texas, that's that way. You're not, you're listening to this. You didn't see me just point. We're goofy. I will fully confess to you, all of you right now, that it is mid-afternoon when we are recording this, and we are just silly. Lisa and I have known each
Yes.
other for a while. We have been friends. And so we've just been chatting for a while. And I got to just tell you, I feel like you're coming in to have a cup of coffee with two good friends today. And so, Lisa,
hmm
welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here. And yes, I hope somebody will grab their beverage of choice, whether it is coffee or tea. I'm at tea at this hour of the day. Coffee would keep me awake too much, but yes, grab their favorite beverage and sit down and have a chat with us.
I am so glad. Y'all, I come to you today. Lisa does have a really neat story, and we are going to get to that. But one of my favorite things about Lisa is that she affectionately says that she had the least horrible raising. She was born into a great Christian home. Nothing tragic happened to her. And basically, she lived the life that all of us wished that any of us who had trauma in our lives
hmm
you lived that life. Am I correct?
Yeah, in a lot of ways that, yeah,
And
you
you
were,
and you
because I
played the
didn't have
flute.
any big, huge, yes, and I played the flute. We talked about that. I was in the marching band. I played the flute and piccolo. So my biggest claim to fame is that I actually played the piccolo solo in Stars and Stripes. And that is a very hard solo. One, it's a difficult solo. And two, everybody knows it. So that thing that you tell yourself when you're singing or performing that nobody will know if I mess up, everybody was going
They
to know
will.
if I messed up. So, but I managed to get through it and it was really hard. There's no way I could play it now, but it was a lot of fun.
That's so fun. I think that we joke about the fact that you really did. You led a charmed life growing up, and
Mhm.
there is absolutely no shame in that. And I do know other people who have casually made it through life without a ton of trauma in their early life. And so kudos. I hope my kids make it mostly out of this house without too much trauma. If they ever listen to this, they're going to be like, yeah, she's my mom.
My children probably will not say that they made it through
No,
their childhood without any trauma. So,
absolutely not. But that doesn't mean that you have not had your fair share of tragedy in your house and
yes.
in your life. And you guys lost a precious young child. I would like to, can you share about that? And then let's just tell everybody a little bit about that. And then let's talk about some of the after effects.
Yeah, I had a 10-year-old cousin. Her name was Stephanie. She and I were the only granddaughters on my mom's side of the family. I was probably, I think I was about 12 years older than her. I'm not going to do the math right now, but she and I were fairly close when we got together for family occasions. I was her mother's flower girl when I was little. And then when I got married, Stephanie was my flower girl. And I was so excited to have her as my flower girl. In fact, her picture is up on my Facebook page with our anniversary picture. So she was about 8 years old when she was our flower girl, and they had just come to visit Williamsburg. We had been married almost 2 years. They were kind of swapping off, doing a swap with the cousins. She had two brothers, and they were kind of doing a swap with my grandparents. And so it was her and her oldest brother with my aunt headed back home. And on the way back, they were in a car accident. And unfortunately, the car flipped several times. She was didn't have her seatbelt on. And of course, we had just seen her, and she had been asking if when we were going to have children. And if I had a daughter, she wanted my daughter to be her flower girl. So
Oh,
that's kind of the relationship that we
that
had.
is
She
sweet.
was a dear, sweet girl. She was 10 years old, and anybody who knows 10-year-olds, they're just as darling as could be.
Yeah.
And so she was really dear to me. And we had been at an event and we came back, and it's one of those messages on the voice machine where as soon as you hear it, you go, oh no, what's wrong? Something's wrong. You just know something's wrong. So I called my parents and they said that there'd been an accident and that my other cousin and my aunt were doing okay, but Stephanie had been seriously injured and they weren't sure if she was going to make it. And in the moment, you're shocked. And then there's the shock and the upset and the worry and the fear. And I remember at the time thinking, no, I'm not going to go there. I am this strong Christian. I'm a youth leader. I'm supposed to be setting an example for my faith in God. And I grabbed a hold of all of the little cliches that we have, like the faith of a mustard seed. Don't
Mm-hmm.
doubt. I'm going to believe. All things work out for good. God can do anything. Nothing's impossible for God. All of those I kept clinging to and going, I'm going to believe. I'm going to completely believe with all of my heart that she's going to be okay. She's going to be healed. This is going to be an amazing story. This is going to be one of those miracle stories that we say, yes, God is great. We had a miracle. And I was the only way I kind of kept myself together for the next day
Yeah,
and a half.
and that's
And
okay.
then when my parents called me the next day, they said that she'd been declared brain dead and they were going to take her off the machines. So she died. And I remember just feeling like everything was ripped out from underneath me. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm I believed you. I believed, I trusted, I did all those things that those little Bible verses say to do,
Yeah.
and she's dead. And I had a really hard time with that. So yeah, it
That's
totally ripped my faith out from underneath me at that point.
were you and you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that moment of going, what in the world, Lord? I thought you had the power to save her. I thought you had, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing we all go through the gamut of those emotions
Yeah.
whenever something like tragedy strikes like that.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I'm really sorry. I know this has been a long
Yeah.
time ago, but I
Mm-hmm.
also know that those who are just dear to you, as soon as you said that, I had the image of my flower girl in my head and my little cousins, and
Mm,
I
yeah.
get it. They're darling, and
Yeah.
you saw the promise of life ahead of her,
Yeah.
and it was gone.
Yeah. I had
I
lost grandparents and great grandparents before, and it was sad, but you kind of expect that
right.
you expect in life to have to say goodbye to your grandparents and your great grand and stuff like that. And I was blessed to even know my great grandparents. But the
Mm,
death of a child is totally different because you can't say, oh, they had a good long life. You
no,
can't say that. You
no,
wonder what would it have been like for their prom? What would it have been like for to see them graduate high school? What
yeah,
college would they have
sure.
gone to? What would it have been like years later when her brother got married? They did ask my daughter to be their flower girl. So that was another whole moment at that wedding going, oh my gosh, she should have been Stephanie's flower girl, but Stephanie's not here. And so all those little moments that go along with that, and you do, and you know that he had the power to heal.
Yeah, of
I believe he had the power to heal. And so then
course
you
you did.
go, so why not? And that's where we get caught up a lot of times in that you didn't do what I wanted you to do, Lord. And
Mhm.
so now I'm going to question you.
And there our emotions tend to be big. We tend to have big
Mhm.
emotions
Yes.
surrounding this. And I think sometimes it's really hard when we're feeling the enormity of emotions like that. It's really
Mhm.
hard, I think, to give him those emotions sometimes. Or I can give him those emotions in not necessarily a real healthy way. I can be like,
Yes.
let me tell you what I think.
Hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, I
How do
told him
you
a lot.
handle? Did you, yeah, I was going to say, I assume you went through the anger phase.
Oh, yes, I did. I definitely went through the anger phase. I went through the sad and the depressed
Mm,
and the
yeah,
anger. And I don't necessarily remember bargaining much because I didn't, at that point, there
there
wasn't
was
much to bargain with.
nothing to, yeah.
There wasn't anything to bargain with at that point. I do remember I read a lot of different books, kind of for me, prove that God did exist because I did have moments where I'm like, what's the point? I prayed, I believed, and then she still died. So, what kind of a God lets that happen? And even though I'd seen it in others and I could use the cliches and the band-aids and everything to justify for them, it's different when it was me and it was my family. And I'm like, okay, what makes me think I'm going to be any different to not have anything like that happen in my life? But I really kind of wanted to know, okay, Lord, I'm supposed to be praying to you. Are you even there? Are you even real? And I did
Mm,
have a lot of doubts. and I read several books. Some of them were more helpful than others. I would say the most helpful book for me was Lee Strobel's Case for Christ, because it
Yes.
was a very easy read. And he kind of went through the facts, and he didn't believe, but then he did. And that really helped me, along with some really good friends that were like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to question. You're still talking to him. And that was the key,
Yes.
because
Yes.
even though I was angry, and I do remember thinking that there was very little to no comfort in prayer for probably about 3 years.
You know,
And
you're not the only person who's ever said that to me.
yeah,
That praying really didn't bring a lot of
mm-mm.
comfort. It
Oh,
was there. You knew he was hearing it, but it didn't necessarily help anything right there in that moment.
yeah, yeah. And
That's okay.
looking back, I think that I probably was severely depressed on and off.
Yes.
And a couple of key things happened after I, read, and I was like, okay, he probably really is there, and talking to friends. I remember writing in my journal, because I would write a lot in my journal. I would say I'd say I'd vomit all over the page at times,
Mhm.
with whatever it is, just getting it out. And
Okay.
sometimes I'll get
You're
a
in good
pad of
company.
paper and then rip it out and burn it if it's that
Yeah.
bad. I don't want anybody reading it, not even. But I remember writing down, because I did not like the Romans 8:28, that all things
Oh,
work for good.
yes.
People would say that, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't see anything good coming out of it right now, so I don't want to hear
Well,
that.
and I think that feels trite.
Yeah.
Like whenever somebody pats you and says, all things work together for good, honey, all things work together for
Hmm.
good, that doesn't bring her back. I
No,
mean, that's
no.
just the reality is there's still a mom and dad that are without their child now. So tell
Hmm.
me how that's good. Explain to me. Oh, I could get real angry real fast. Just like, can you see me
Yeah.
getting my fingers
Yeah.
going? I'm
Yeah.
like, you friends who are listening and not watching this on the YouTube. By the way, I post everything on YouTube if you want to go look. Hey, but yeah, it does. It feels Romans 8:28, although it is scriptural, and I believe that what that word says is that all things work together for the good for those who believe in him and are
Hmm.
called according to his purpose. I believe that. But it's
Yes.
real hard to live it out and not feel empty when you are in that place.
Mm.
What did you do? What did you do there?
For the most part, I'm really good at going, and just kind of going, and nodding my head and going, okay, and then just not really responding at all, because that was one of the ones I remember thinking, okay, I can read that and I can wrestle that one out with God between me and him, but I don't want to hear it from you, at least
Hmm.
not now. It really took time before I was able to get to this point where I wrote in my journal, it said she was too good for her death to have been in vain. And that if God promises to work something out, then I got to kind of cooperate with that and let him do it and get out of the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Because if I'm refused to let anything good come out of it, God's not going to force himself on me.
No.
And so it's a matter of just saying, okay, I got no idea what good is going to come out of this, because it all just looks like a big pile of poo to me. But okay, Lord, whatever it is that you want to do out of this to bring some semblance of good, make a beautiful stained glass window out of everything that's been shattered. I will do my best to get out of your way and let it happen.
Yeah.
And so there was that point where I kind of was like, okay, I can do that. And people could say it and I wouldn't get quite as upset. There were still
Mm.
some things that it is amazing. And I'm sure you've heard this. People say some of the, shall I say, stupidest things.
Yes.
And one of the
Yes.
things that I did have to keep in mind, though, is knowing that they didn't realize how it came across, is that they don't mean to come across this way. One of my dearest friends said something, and I just remember I so wanted to look at her and go, that is not the least bit helpful at all. But I
Yes.
know she meant, and I knew her story, and what she said came out of her story and her perspective. So it was
Ah,
like, okay, I know that you think that's helpful because that's what you told yourself. And I know that you love me and you're trying to be helpful, even though it isn't. But I
yeah.
could kind of say, yeah, okay, thank you very much. I know she means well, even though it doesn't feel good. So trying to keep that in mind too. When people say things that you just kind of want to go, really? really, chances are they don't know how it sounds. They mean,
Yeah.
they just don't know what to say. And so they
Yeah.
say some of these cliches in that. And
Like, oh, she's in a better place.
yes,
And
she's
you're
in a bit.
like,
Oh, yeah.
yes, but I'm
Somebody
not
said
with
she
her.
needs an angel. Yeah. Somebody said,
Oh,
oh,
God. Oh,
God needed another angel.
oh, no,
And I just
no.
kind of went, okay, and nodded my
No,
head.
he
And
didn't,
in
as
my
it
head,
turns
I'm going,
out.
okay, number one, that is not biblical. People
No,
do not become angels. Second of all, of the other
no,
billion people
friends.
on the planet, he couldn't use one of them. So, but that's where they're trying to be helpful and paint a pretty picture to make you feel better. And even though it
Yeah.
doesn't really, in the middle of it all, too, I realized that what I wrote down was my God is not a wimp. And
No.
meaning he can take it. He can take it when we get angry and we yell and scream at him and we question if he's there. He can handle it. He's not up there in heaven chewing his fingernails going, oh no, he's mad at me.
No.
That's that is not what
No.
God is doing. He's
No.
going, I get it, honey. I know you're angry. I know it hurts. I know this really stinks and it
Yes.
hurts and you don't understand. And I will never understand on this side
Yeah.
of heaven. I won't understand on heaven. We
I
can,
don't think we're meant to. I don't think we're
no.
meant to if we could, what kind of God is that? If
Hmm.
we could understand everything, that's a wimpy God. If I can
Yeah.
understand everything he does, then that makes me equally minded as him. And that's not the God I want to serve. So I'm okay. I've come to be okay with not being able to understand everything. That's
Yeah.
truly. Oh, and by the
Hmm.
way, side note, people, if you are at a funeral or you go to a visitation, you can say these words. Are you ready for it? I'm so sorry for your loss.
Hmm.
Period. You
Yes.
can stop right there. Okay, there you go. I just had to stop and go back and tell my
Hmm.
friends, like all my list, like all these
Yes.
people who hear this. I'm like, could I just do a public service announcement real fast? You
Hmm.
can just say, I am so sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
You do not have to say anything else after that. Have you seen
No.
Ted Lasso? Have you ever watched Ted Lasso?
Yes.
There's the funeral where the blonde Rebecca's dad dies, and then they're all in a line and they're all saying
Hmm.
something. And then the little guy starts talking about what's his name, Nate, starts, parents are the blah, 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 blah. And they all kind of look at him weird. And I'm like, that's us when we try to talk about
Yeah.
our angels in heaven. Like, stop it, people. Okay. Anyways,
Hmm.
we digressed, Lisa. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Well,
Okay.
no, I'll bring it back around in that one of the good things that did come out of that was I have a much greater understanding of what to do when somebody's grieving or when
Yes.
somebody's going through a hard season because I know what helped me and I know what didn't help me.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you can just say, I'm so sorry.
I'm so
And
sorry.
I have told people, I said, I'm really sorry. And this stinks. And sometimes I use words that are even stronger than
Like,
that we
this
shouldn't put over the air.
sucks is
Yes.
really actually what you want to say. It's
Yeah.
okay. We don't cuss on
Yeah.
here, but we will say this sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks
Hmm.
really bad sometimes. Sorry,
Yeah.
kids, if you're on your way to school and you're hearing this, but sometimes it really does.
It does.
And that yet what the Lord has done is He's created this empathy in you
Hmm.
through this. I would say that probably grew your faith up quite a bit in a weird
Yeah.
way. Like, you probably went from questioning him then to going, I'm starting to see how you're working here.
I'm not so sure it stopped because it didn't necessarily stop all of my questioning of him. That's something that I have still at times will struggle with. And I used to beat myself up for it. I was like, no, I wanted to come out of this with this. I know there's no doubt. But the thing is that the opposite of faith is not doubt, it's certainty. So if we were absolutely certain with no question whatsoever, where's the faith in that? I don't need a whole lot of faith to sit in this stool that
Hmm,
I'm sitting in right now.
right.
So I remember reading that somewhere and going, huh, so the opposite of faith is not doubt. And he says that when we seek him, we will find him.
Yes, that's right.
So I wouldn't say that it's gone, that I don't doubt anymore, but I
Mhm.
will say that my faith has gotten a lot deeper. It's not nearly as shallow. It can hold the good and the bad. And as I've progressed in different things in my life, there's more and more of that. Okay, there's this deep grief, or there's this deep sorrow, or a deep hurt, but there can still be joy, and there
Yeah.
can still be peace in the middle of those. We can hold both of them, because
Oh,
rarely is life one or the other.
it's not.
It's,
No.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of times where we're having to hold both the grief and the joy, because I do remember thinking, wow, their neighborhood, my aunt and uncle's neighborhood was amazing. They pulled together, they opened their homes for all of us to stay in. They brought, I don't think my aunt or my uncle had to go grocery shopping for 6 months. I mean,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
so much food, the community around them. And I do remember thinking, as sad and as devastated as I was, thinking, wow, this is really cool how this community has come together. And that's one of the other things that came out of it too, is that there, some of the smallest things meant so much. We think, oh, we
Mm.
have to bring over a deluxe sized homemade casserole to somebody. You know what?
No, you don't.
Just pick up a bouquet of flowers, or
Yep.
ask God what they need, because there have been times where people are going through something and I'll be like, okay, Lord, I'm going to pray for them, but what else can I do? What else can I do
Yes.
that's tangible? That I'll say, what do they need? And I will ask, what do they need? Give me something that is maybe out of the norm. Maybe it is, I will go by and pick up soup from a restaurant. Or
Yeah.
during COVID, we picked up a pre-made meal from a restaurant. I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't have enough time to do it, but we dropped them off, and she said it was the best thing. All they had to do is pop it in the oven, and then they
Yep.
had a meal. There was one time, it was around Easter, and I remember thinking, oh, she's been in the middle of all this. She's not even thought about it.
Yeah.
And so I got Easter baskets and Easter candy and
Uh-huh.
dropped off Easter
Uh-huh.
baskets for
Uh-huh.
her and kids. She was like, I never would have thought of that. I was
Hadn't
like,
thought
but
about it.
God did. And I may not have either, but God did.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
just all that, or even as simple as a text.
Yes.
There's so many things that we can do just to brighten somebody's day. And
Yes.
so it's one
I'll
of the
tell you.
things that's come out of
One
that.
of the my dad had a heart attack in May,
Hmm.
and we were running ourselves ragged. He did not at the time, he didn't live here in Lubbock. He does now, and I'm thrilled for that. But
Yeah.
when it happened, I know, right? But when it happened, he happened to be here in Lubbock when it happened, and so he was here in the hospital in Lubbock. And I came home one afternoon, and one of my coworkers lives about a block from my house, and she walks her dog all the time. She, cutest little dog, cutest woman. Okay. I come home and there is a little sack on our front porch, and it is bread from like the grocery store. Like it wasn't like it was homemade. I'm talking
Yeah.
like little thing of like some breakfast bread and
Yeah.
then some Schmucker's jelly in that sack. Okay. With the note that just said, I love you. I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
It was so simple. It was
Hmm.
not, it
Yeah.
wasn't this extravagant, I've made homemade zucchini bread from my garden. It was breakfast bread and some Smucker's jelly. And do
Yeah.
you want to know what? I freaking wept when I opened that up because she had just taken the time to. So now
Yeah.
my husband had a little bit of food for breakfast.
He had some form of calories to ingest to keep
Some
living.
sustenance, yes, besides the protein shakes we were living on.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, you said somebody just texting, but I'm just gonna, from somebody who has recently walked through a difficult time, people don't know how to ask for help whenever they're in a
Yes.
situation like this.
Hmm.
And to just say, hey, I'm on my way, I'm dropping this off, or I just dropped it off, and then she didn't even tell me she had dropped it off. It
Yeah.
was just I came home and found it.
Hmm.
Um, Showing up and doing something like that,
Yeah.
it meant the world to me. And it was
Hmm.
so simple. And it's not like, here's the thing, and I'm just going to say this because I have friends who listen to this, and I know good. And some of them ask me, what can I do for you? We don't know. And you're in the
You're
middle of a
right.
hard thing. When somebody says to you, hey, how can I help you? I guarantee you they're going to say, I don't know. I'm
Hmm.
fine. I'm
Yeah.
okay. And that's not necessarily pride. It's that I have no idea what I would even
Yeah,
begin to
your
tell you.
brain's not even
No.
able to really process that. And I'm
Yeah.
certainly not going to say I need all my laundry done and my house cleaned is
Yeah.
what I need.
Right.
But to that point, I actually had, we were going through something, and my husband called a friend of mine, and she showed up in a ratty t-shirt with her mop and her broom, and she cleaned my house. And I was like
Yeah.
crying. He was like, I called her because he knew I wouldn't call her. But I think
Yes.
you hit on an important part that we frequently forget, that we don't know how to ask for help, and we'll
No.
offer it, and we just let me know if you need anything. Chances are they're not. And so it's so much more important that if you really want, I didn't ask her. I just said, hey, I'm dropping this off. And depending on how well them, it
Mhm.
may be more appropriate to say, hey, when is a good day to drop something off?
Mhm.
Or do you have any allergies, or something like that? Depending on how low them, it may be appropriate to ask some questions and
Sure.
such. But to offer something specific is so key when somebody is going through something
Yes.
difficult. It's
Yeah.
to just go ahead and do the card. Go ahead and just drop off flowers. Just go ahead and drop off
Yeah.
some food, or say, hey, what time will you be home? I would like to do something. This is when can I drop it off?
Yes.
And that is such a big deal. And the other thing, the lesson that I learned, and this was when I had my third child, is do not assume that everyone else will do something just because somebody
That.
is well known.
Yes.
Because I was in MOPS, I was a
Mhm.
youth group leader, I had friends in a civic organization.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when my third child was born, she was only 18 months after the second one. So I had yeah, I
Oh.
had three of them. I had three of them.
Oh.
Yeah,
You
5, 1.5,
survived.
and newborn. And yes, I did. I survived. And it's a good thing I planned ahead, because I was like, okay, yeah, I've done this before. I'm going to go ahead and have some stuff in the freezer. I didn't
Yeah.
get a single meal. I got
Wow.
nothing, absolutely nothing. And years later, I said something to a friend of mine. I was like, yeah, no, I didn't get anything with when my third was born. She was like, what? Are you, what? I would have brought something, but I thought your church would have done something. And I'm like, no,
Nope.
they didn't. And I was a
Yeah.
small group leader in MOPS, but the small group leader is the one that was supposed to be in charge of getting
Coordinate.
meals. I'm not going to send up a sign up sheet for myself. Hey
No.
guys, I just had a baby. You going to sign up and give me a meal? I'm not going to do that.
Oh.
And
And
nobody
it's
else
not
thought
even.
to.
Yeah, and it's not like, and I don't hear in your voice like you're like still holding a grudge onto any of these people or anything like that.
No.
Not, but it's still like just how we assume that everybody else is
Hmm.
going to be doing something. Or I
Yeah.
don't know if y'all are like me, but I get like I get all my like I have a super awkward cape because that's my superpower is being super awkward. And I honestly, there are times, I'm not kidding, girl. I'll think, oh, I'm gonna be too awkward. I don't know if I should like if I should show up. I don't know. I can in my head get so super
Hmm.
awkward and like
Oh yeah.
over analyzing when really and truly, if I just go to the grocery store, pick up a loaf of bread and jelly and drop it off on their front porch, they might weep too, like I did. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
the one of the greatest gifts somebody I had shoulder surgery in December. It's been a year. I've had my dad had a heart attack. I had shoulder surgery, but
Oof.
somebody set up a meal train for me after I had shoulder surgery. And I was like, I'm not gonna need that. It'll be fine. And but she did it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know how bad I needed this.
Hmm.
It was so those meals were lifeline after I
Yes.
had shoulder surgery. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
about showing up for other people. And
Yeah.
what's funny, we didn't have this on we weren't even going to talk about this, but I love how the Lord just has kind of brought this all together. And yeah, as we're kind of wrapping up here, because as it
Hmm.
turns out, time flies whenever I'm on here.
Yes.
I'll look up and it'll have been like 30 or 45 minutes. And I'm like, dang it, we're just getting started.
We still got plenty of good stuff.
As we're wrapping up, okay, one of the things that I would love to know from you is as you reflect on that season of life, you've got
Hmm.
some distance now
Yeah.
from it. What do you think your biggest takeaway was from that? And what has the Lord taught you, probably, if not the most, but what's one of the things you feel like the Lord has taught you the most from that season?
From that particular season, it was that it's okay for me to doubt. It's okay for me to question. As long as I still keep talking to God,
Yeah.
it's okay. and that he's okay with that. And he loves me. He loves me even if I'm questioning him, even if I'm going, yeah, I really don't know what you're up to because this makes no sense to me. And I'm not even sure you're whatever. Are you still up there? Seriously? And I think
Are
he
you
goes,
watching
yeah,
this?
do you see what's going on here? Do you not see what's going on? And so I really just think it's the ability to ask questions and also that he can handle all of my big emotions because I have some really big emotions. You talk about your awkward Kate. My emotions are my superpower and my
Oh,
kryptonite. They are both. They can be really big and very easily derail me. But God's, there have been times where I've been, God, why did you make me this way? He's like, there's a reason why. And I'm like, I'm really questioning this whole big emotion thing you put in me because it doesn't seem to work all the time. But that's okay. And I've also learned to be merciful to myself and not beat myself up for not exactly being where I think I should be based on what I see somebody else or comparing or even just my own. So for that particular season, it was that just keep talking to God and it's okay. You'll get there. If because he does. He says if we seek him, we will find him. And if we come through and we're questioning, it doesn't matter how much we question, at the end of it, it's our choice. We can choose to say, like the Father, I believe, help me in my unbelief.
yes.
And he will honor that. He will honor
Yeah.
those little baby steps.
Oh, that is a great place for us to end. That is a
Mhm.
beautiful, I don't, I wish she was still here, but I'm really glad
Yeah.
that you've come to this place through it.
Hmm. Yeah.
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 Thank you for coming on the show. I
Oh,
have
you are
so
so
enjoyed it.
welcome. Yeah.
My fellow podcaster, my friends who don't know it, Lisa and I were in a growth group together this year. So we got to know each other.
Hmm.
We would see each other once a month and get to just communicate and work together on how to be better at what we do. And I can tell you guys, Lisa is one of the good guys in this fight, and
Well,
you are. And I'm just grateful that we got to share some time together. It has been my honor to have you. So
well, thank you. Thank you. It's
you're
been an
welcome.
honor and a privilege to be here.
Thanks. Friends, if you haven't already signed up to get the podcast and just my general newsletter, please go to kristilowe.com/newsletter and sign up for that. Y'all know I tell you about it every week. And so I'm just going to keep on telling you about it where I'm back. Y'all think that if everybody signed up, then I would quit saying it. I'm just saying, I feel like a mom. Lisa's laughing at me at the moment. Y'all can't hear her in the back, but she's laughing. I'm just kidding. You guys go sign up for that. That's how I communicate to my family. That's how I tell you guys what all is coming in on the podcast. And it's where I share extra tidbits and things behind the scenes that are going on. So go get that. And wherever you are, whatever the Lord is teaching you in this, just know that it's okay to ask questions, just like what Lisa said today. So keep asking him questions. He's big enough to handle them. So thanks for being here, my friends. And good Lord willing, I will see y'all next week.